What is pop locking, my dudes? It is Tuesday, October 11th, and yeah, thanks to all of you. I'm almost near 1,000 subscribers. I keep hemorrhaging a few every day. I'm not sure what is it. Maybe they go back through my older content when I was still fresh and naive to the YouTube world, which is now overly dominated by high quality production content and viral ad clicking, clickbait type material. No doubt, it's actually gotten to the point where it feels like late stage capitalism. These young vloggers getting in their vans and vlogging their life as if it was a movie. It's like, congrats, your life is a movie. Are you happy now? It's something they keep obtaining after. I'm just reporting the news. So I have some fascinating articles to bring up today. Recent, too, like within the past 24 hours. The first here from space.com. Ancient Mars microbes triggered climate change that made it hard for them to survive. The primitive biosphere had a self-destructive effect. So essentially, ancient microbes triggered a climate change on Mars that made it less habitable. A new climate modeling study suggests, according to the study, simple microbes that feed on hydrogen and excrete methane could have thrived on Mars some 3.7 billion years ago, at the same time that primitive life was taking hold in Earth's primordial oceans. But while on Earth, the emergence of simple life gradually created an environment conducive to more complex life forms, the exact opposite happened on Mars, according to a team of scientists led by astrobiologist Boris Sautery at the Institut de Biologie de l'École Normale Supérieure in Paris, France, or IBENS. His team conducted complex computer modeling study that simulated the interaction of what we know about the ancient atmosphere and lithosphere of Mars with hydrogen-consuming microbes similar to those existed on Earth. The researchers found that while on Earth the methane produced by those microbes gradually warmed the planet, Mars instead of cooled down, driving the microbes deeper and deeper into layers, planets, crusts, to survive. At the same time, Mars would have been relatively wet and warm between 10 to 20 degrees Celsius, or 14 degrees 60, or just 68 degrees Fahrenheit. It had liquid water in the form of rivers, lakes, and maybe oceans on its surface, but its atmosphere was quite different from that on Earth, as it was a dense but richer in carbon and hydrogen, both of which acted like potent warming greenhouse gases. Being farther away from the sun and the Earth, and therefore naturally cooler. Mars needed those greenhouse gases to maintain a comfortable temperature life, but as those early microbes started devouring hydrogen producing methane, they actually slowed down this warming greenhouse gas, making ancient Mars gradually so cold it became inhospitable. We don't see that on Earth because our planet's atmosphere is not as rich as carbon dioxide as that of Mars used to be. Not for much longer, so the microbes essentially replaced a more potent hydrogen warming gas hydrogen with a less potent warming gas methane, which would have a net cooling effect. Fascinating, guys. So what can we do here? What can we do in the world? What is happening in it? Interesting engineering. World's first carbon-eating concrete blocks. The novel cement-free, weeks away from commercial use, will help remove 330 pounds or 150 kilograms of CO2 for every ton of concrete produced. I'm just going to read the highlights. It's an alternative to concrete that can absorb carbon dioxide. Fascinating. The alternate construction blocks are up to 30% stronger than conventional cement-based blocks, and they're about to construct 25,000 units per day. Cement, which accounts for 8% of the world's greenhouse gases, too little, too late. Just going to cut to the chase here. That Newsweek would place this article in Tech and Science, no, not surprisingly, given the rhetoric lately, and most channels have been covering this. Best places to survive in the nuclear war in the U.S. I'm not going to read this thing, but you can't afford a bomb shelter. They're most likely going to attack major cities first. So at least my subscribers shouldn't have too much to worry about, but the ripple effect this would have, actually, yeah, it could turn to Armageddon. Look, guys, nobody knows how the pieces may fall in the next few years, and how interchangeably the climate is going to affect biodiversity loss and influence of conflict and war, and it's going to come out from the margins and eventually get to you and I quickly. I have some pretty hardcore doomers on my channel, and I'm not second guessing any of the factors, okay? I'm not underestimating anything. You guys know this. Let's get on to climate and economy. Today's focusing on economy. Some pretty rigid news. Fears are rising that the global financial system will seize up. The volatility in global bond, equity, currency, and property markets could trigger or be triggering margin calls that flow back to the bond markets. So it'll just be brutal. Global bonds move in lockstep, ramping up investors' risk. The IMF warning that a potential liquidity risk in the world's $64 trillion of managed funds. Pressures from these investors could force funds to sell assets quickly, which could further depress valuations, and that term would amplify the impact of initial shock and potentially undermine the stability of the financial system, the IMF writes. Swimming naked, Credit Suisse, which we know is on like the edge of bankruptcy and default, rates are rising rapidly, and financial markets are shrinking as that tide of cheap liquidity goes out. To borrow from one of Warren Buffett's more colorful and popular lines, they won't be the only institution swimming naked. Please, somebody, how is Warren Buffett still existing? This debate is to extend over major economies already in global recession. Morgan Stanley strategist says global economy contracts for a second month. Worldwide PC shipments plunge nearly 20%. This is rapid fire, guys. Cutting oil output risks global economy, warns U.S. Treasury. The world's biggest oil-producing nation is cutting production at a time of soaring energy costs is unhelpful and unwise for global economic growth, because we need growth forever. The U.S. Treasury Secretary is warned amid intense pressures from sky-high inflation. Quarton says he needs to find $60 billion of UK spending cuts. Jeez. A material risk to UK financial stability continues. UK shoppers, are you better believe it's snapping up blankets, warm clothes for difficult winter? A third of petrol stations out of fuel as strikes continue. Germany's going to pay for December gas bills for household and businesses. Meanwhile, they would have also arrested you if you didn't wear a mask during COVID. Something we could be grateful for here in the States, because there would have been a lot of conflict, let's admit it. German bond yields jump after Scholz reported on supporting EU debt. European energy market spooked by a 1.5 trillion liquidity crisis. Russian gas supply gap casts chill in Europe. We know this. Investors' morale in the Eurozone slid for the third consecutive month in October. Protests against cost of living in major capitals in the EU. China's job economy is slowing down. This is like slam poetry, guys, of doom. Emerging markets already in crisis situation, Dutch bank says in report. It's reasonable to say this crisis has already arrived, said analysts led by chief economist Michael Spencer wrote in a report. While most of the stress has been so far in frontier markets, the pressure has been broad-based and felt in both offshore and local currency markets. So what can we do without perpetual and endless economic growth, guys? What will we do? We might actually have to get connected with nature again. You want to sleep with the bugs? Bangladesh's electricity crisis deepens as demand supply gap widens. Taps run dry in Dhaka. Protests in Tehran. Inflation in Egypt. Tunisia has only 1 week of petrol supply. That is no fucking good. South Africa risks economic collapse as Transnet strike hit ports with billions on the line. Logistics business have been warned of a catastrophic economic fallout if operations of the state-owned logistics giant ports in Durban and Cape Town face prolonged suspension. He said a strike at Transnet was disastrous not only to direct imports like the medical sector, but to exports like the mining sector, but to the economy. Interconnected economy. More problems in Haiti, and UN refugee boss warns of severe cuts without immediate new funding. We were promised, as in the nations of the world, promising $100 billion in climate finance. Well, we can't even fund the refugee agency, so they'll have to make severe cuts. So we can't manage all the refugees. That's what it's saying, unless it gets extra funding soon. What about Warren Buffett's money or Tesla? Can he donate just $1 million of his just $1 million of his $1 billion net worth? This is capitalism. The billionaires, I'm stealing this from Democracy Revolution. The billionaires get quadruple their wealth. War veteran is lucky to get a tent. Most Americans are in credit card debt, massive amounts of debt. And people with disabilities can't find jobs. Hard enough to find a job as is. Cuts could lead to more malnutrition and some child miscarriages, as well as unrest. I guess I meant miscarriages, as well as unrest in some of the world's poorest regions. No doubt. Look, I don't mean to harp on this over and over, but everyone's like, what's the big deal? What the big deal is a total collapse of our global economy and way of life. Anyways, that was a pretty brutal report. Hope you guys are well. Hit like and subscribe. This program takes a little time out of my day each day to produce, so if you want to support public journalism, hit the link below. And other than that, have a warm and gorgeous day. I'll talk to you soon. See ya.